New evidence of hope that 4 children may be alive after a small plane crash 17 days ago in a remote part of the Amazon rainforest. Here's why there is reason to hope. Discoveries of scrunchies, plastic wrappings, even a baby bottle. CNN's Stefano Pozzebon is in Colombia, where this massive search is currently underway.
A glimmer of hope. Colombia's president tweeting that 4 children on board a single-engine aircraft that crashed in the jungle on May 1st had been found alive and well. Rescuers using scattered debris to trace them, but on Thursday, the president's tweet was deleted, saying the information, quote, could not be confirmed. Government officials blaming poor communication. And the head of the country's Children Welfare Authority later saying she was, quote, very confident about their rescue. She said, quote, we're still missing that very, very last link that confirms all our hopes. Until we have the photo of the kids, we won't be stopping. We're not underestimating the information we received, but we want to confirm directly ourselves. The Colombian Armed Forces have been using dogs to search for the children. The plane had taken off from the remote area of Araraquara, bound for San José del Guaviare. Rescuers from the military and local indigenous communities aren't giving up hope to bring home the little ones as they follow a trail of small objects such as hair scrunchies and baby bottles, even bringing in a recording of the grandmother to at least one of the children to help in the search. But efforts are difficult given the rainfall in the dense part of the jungle.
Once the rivers start to swell and things like that, and you have areas that are rapids, it makes it more difficult to navigate. Obviously, as I said, the rivers are kind of the highway. So they're going to be using those waterways to get to and from places, obviously to extract the survivors out and things of that nature.
The Colombian Aviation Authority say they found another 3 bodies inside the small aircraft, but those have yet to be recovered.
And Jake, CNN has just learned minutes ago that those bodies, the 3 bodies, have indeed been recovered and have just arrived in the hands of Colombian authorities. They were the bodies of the 3 adults on board of that flight, 2 indigenous passengers and the pilot. Still no words on the whereabouts and the status of those 4 little children, which makes this frantic search even more frantic, Jake.
Yeah, Stefano Pozzebon, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Joining us now to discuss and get some insight is survival expert and author Dave Canterbury. Dave, thank you so much for sharing part of your afternoon with us. First, I just want to put the challenge that these kids are facing into context. You're talking about some of the densest rainforest on Earth. What are they facing?
Well, the one thing I think you have to put into context is that these are indigenous people. They're a tribal people, children of tribal people. So they probably have some knowledge of the local flora, fauna, and things like that, and what they can use off the landscape. However, surviving the plane crash alone, that's phenomenal in itself. And then the fact that they have the 4-year-old or the 11-month-old child becomes your anomaly, because that child probably needs much more care than the older children do. And the older children are probably leading this expedition out. Would they be better off staying in place to be found? I would say yes, obviously they would. However, they're probably thinking that if they keep moving toward water, water becomes the highway in the jungle. So the closer they can get to water, the closer they are to being found.
That's a really important point. It's interesting you describe the baby as being the anomaly. Maybe for survivalists it's the anomaly, but the whole situation seems like something out of fiction, right? And apparently the weather isn't helping either. There's a lot of rain falling in that area. How does that complicate this process?
Once the rivers start to swell and things like that, and you have areas that are rapids, it makes it more difficult to navigate. Obviously, as I said, the rivers are kind of the highway. So they're going to be using those waterways to get to and from places, obviously to extract the survivors out and things of that nature. And that is more difficult during torrential rains when those rivers are swollen.
And they've been out there for more than 2 weeks now. If you're, a child, you're in a plane crash, something horrible like that happens, you see loved ones that might be injured or killed, what's your first step? I mean, what do you do in that situation if you're in the middle of the Amazon?
Well, being a child, it's hard to say what their thought process would be. From a survival standpoint, obviously they need to understand what injuries they may have from the plane crash itself and attend to those injuries first. And then once that's taken care of, it becomes a simple system of sheltering ourselves from any exterior elements, making sure that we have water, and in torrential rains, they're going to have plenty of water. And then sustainable food, especially for the younger ones who require food more often. And then are they going to navigate toward a waterway, like I said, or try to stay put? I tend to believe that because these tribal children were probably from a river-oriented tribe to begin with, they probably understand that moving toward water is their best bet for rescue, going from one body of water to a larger body of water to a larger body of water to hit the largest river they can find to find something in the form of civilization or someone traveling to and from.
That's really important context. These are indigenous children. They're part of a local tribe, so they probably have some awareness of the rainforest and the fauna and what to eat and what not. But it's still kind of scary being out there with so many things being poisonous and venomous, right?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, you've got large predators out there like jaguar, you've got poisonous snakes, you've got venomous spiders, all those types of things are out there, not to mention just the constant pestering of insects in general, and then the constant rain, which would be a large morale factor for someone like us, but someone who lives in that day in and day out, probably not as much of a downfall in morale as it would be for someone like us. But I think that just the fact that these children are as young as they are, realizing that a 13-year-old child growing up in that environment probably is going to be very similar to someone growing up around the eastern woodlands of the United States. They're going to know what to stay away from, what they can eat, what they can't eat, things like that. However, alone, without anyone around, definitely is going to be a challenge.
And especially with that 11-month-old baby, yikes, that is tough. But it sounds like they're at least alive, and hopefully they'll be found soon. Dave Canterbury, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us. We'd love to chat more once they are found.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.